everyone, my name is Christine Shen. I am the senior planner at the City of West Hollywood working on existing building policy. Thank you so much for being here. This is our virtual energy open house, which complements the development of our equitable building performance standards, which aim to improve the energy performance of our existing buildings in West Hollywood. And the goal of the open house today is to share resources on programs that are available now to help our buildings improve their performance, regardless of whether or not they are covered by the proposed policy. So a quick overview of agenda. We will be going over the proposed policy for the city on existing buildings. Then we'll have the state go over their building energy performance strategy. And then we will go over benchmarking demo and demystifying benchmarking for our different stakeholders. And then the main part of this open house will be to go over and learn about the support programs for better buildings, which we'll do in breakouts. And then once we're done doing the breakouts, you'll have time the presenters will present on their programs, and then our community members are given time to ask questions directly to the organizations and their representatives. And then we'll close out by sharing out what we've learned about the different programs. So before we start, we want to learn who is in the room today. So we are launching a poll right now. Folks. I'll give that a few more seconds. Yeah, we want to learn who's in the room. Are you a renter or tenant, building owner, business owner, building manager, community organization representative? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll and share that out with folks. I think we're good. Okay. Great. It looks like we have some tenants and other folks in the room. So a quick overview of West Hollywood's proposed equitable building performance standards. This would be a policy that improves existing buildings to help the city meet its climate goals, as well as benefiting the community by creating healthier and more comfortable homes and buildings. When you don't need to use as much energy to cool or heat your space, you have the potential to save money on your energy bills. And then our buildings through this policy are also incentivized to add on-site solar and battery storage, which increases resiliency. We started engaging the community almost 2 years ago about existing buildings. And here are two quotes from a rent stabilized tenant and a affordable housing owner. From this tenant, I love my apartment, but energy efficiency is by far the biggest issue I have with it. The apartment is so poorly insulated that any AC is immediately warmed by intense heat. It would be amazing if my landlord was required to properly insulate the apartment and reduce not only my electricity bill, but the emissions created by my electric bill. And then on the building owner side, we see them wanting clear information on what they're responsible for, what flexibilities there are, and what support the city will offer to make this policy possible, which is why we're here today to talk about the support programs that are available for our building owners as well as our tenants. Before we do that, we will go over what the city's proposed policy will require from our building owners. The first part is annual reporting on energy usage, which is also known as benchmarking. This is already required by the state for buildings over 50,000 square feet, and we'll have one of our partners go over how to do this in a few minutes. The second part is that the policy would require large existing buildings to meet specific energy use or emission performance targets by a certain deadline. So through a trajectory approach, the targets get more ambitious over time to achieve enhanced performance. And the amount of work that is required for a building comply will depend on the actual performance of a building, and there are going to be different targets for different building types rather than a one-size-fits-all approach, since we do understand that different buildings have different uses, which have different energy use intensities. Also want to note that based on feedback we've received during the last few months of engagement, we recently revised our ordinance to allow for adjustments for condo buildings as well as designated historic buildings. Specifically for condos, we are allowing adjustments to the performance target that only apply to common space and shared appliances. So we're no longer regulating the individually owned units within the condos. So who does the policy impact? The draft policy covers buildings over 20,000 square feet, which are the city's largest buildings. And the largest buildings in the city have the largest greenhouse gas emission impacts. In West Hollywood, over 20,000 square feet only impacts 6% of our buildings, which is about 310. The majority of these buildings are residential multifamily. We see that 132 are apartments, followed by 87 condos, 76 commercial buildings, and 11 hotels. So the city will use the benchmark information that our buildings are reporting annually to determine if a building is meeting its target. If it does, then it's in compliance with the building performance pathway, which is called the BPP. If a building is not able to meet the performance targets, it can go through an alternative compliance pathway, which we're calling the Building Performance Action Plan pathway. And that building performance action plan requires a building to conduct a energy audit or retro commissioning audit and identify opportunities to save energy. And then they will be required to prepare a distributed energy resource report and then submit that to the city with a timeline of when a building would be making these cost-effective building upgrades. To meet performance targets or improve their energy performance, there are a wide menu of options that building owners can choose from, such as energy efficient upgrades and swapping out their natural gas appliances for all electric. So here's an example of what folks can do, as well as the energy potential and the cost. We see that replacing water heaters, space conditioning equipment, and other equipment in a building routinely happen. And this proposed policy would just shape the technology selection, which is often smarter, more efficient, and cleaner than the older equipment in existing buildings that we see. So we have a lot of the programs available today that can support these building upgrades. And we have representatives from these organizations here today to go over financial, technical, as well as resources, educational resources, and how to get started. And you'll get a chance to ask your questions later on in the open house. But before we do, I want to pass it over to the Energy Commission. Alicia, do you want to?
I'm trying to come off mute. Okay, I am sharing my screen. You should all see it. Yes? Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Alicia Yaffe. I am an energy analyst at the California Energy Commission, and I work in our existing buildings branch within the efficiency division. I'm here today to give you a brief overview of the SB 48 building performance strategy implementation. So a brief summary of what we're going to talk about today. We are going briefly over the background of SB 48 and its engagement requirements, as well as the expected project timeline. And then there'll be time for questions and discussion in the main room while you are all in your breakout rooms. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask them from then. So without further ado, the SB 48 summary. The primary requirement of this new law is for the Commission to prepare a strategy and recommendations for using benchmarking data to track and manage energy usage and emissions of greenhouse gases of covered buildings to achieve the state's goals, targets, and standards. Our working title for this document is the Building Energy Performance Strategy Report, and the CEC is required to include recommendations for further legislation and action in the report. This report must be submitted to the legislature before August 2026. I want to note that this is the start of a process. After this report goes to the legislature may authorize a state agency such as the CEC to implement and develop a building performance policy or program. So this is a informal proceeding where we're trying to gauge and gather information from stakeholders. So what are covered buildings referenced in the legislation? Under California's benchmarking law, only a subset of these buildings are required to submit data, known as disclosable buildings. Our proposed strategy would thus focus on these buildings. So what are these buildings? They're buildings over 50,000 square feet that are already required to report to state benchmarking program. The state building energy performance strategy will only apply right now to buildings 50,000 square feet and above. These are commercial buildings with greater than 50,000 square feet of gross floor area and residential buildings greater than 50,000 square feet of gross floor area with 17 or more residential utility accounts. Section C of the law includes a list of 8 specific additional analytic requirements. The strategy and recommendations must avoid increasing utility and rental costs, address the feasibility of cost effectiveness to building owners, address compliance and flexibility for owners, consider equitable access to jobs and other opportunities, prioritize reductions in gas emissions, consider tenant benefits, including utility bill reductions and internal air quality, create a process for alternative compliance for building owners, as well as a process to authorize local jurisdictions to exceed the state strategy. Section D of the law requires the Commission to engage with a diverse array of stakeholders. Listed here, you can see the 11 stakeholder groups, including under-resourced communities and community-based organizations, with a strong emphasis on addressing equity concerns from the level of individual renters up through regional economic impacts. And as you can see, your category that you identified should be somewhere on this list, from renters and tenants to building owners to community organizations representing attendees. So what are we doing? Like, what's the project schedule? So we plan to publish our draft analysis in November. Let me start over. Our kickoff meeting was in July 2024, where we held our public scoping and kickoff workshop. If you're interested, you can find information about that on our website. In November 25, we expect to publish the draft strategy and recommendations. In winter 2025, we will be holding draft workshops and stakeholder engagement. And in August 2026, we expect the report and recommendations to be due to legislature, so we will be submitting it then. And then in terms of how to get involved, our website includes links to all major documents and the docket, public workshops, the subscription list, and all other relevant information. To submit public comments on the proceeding, please visit our e-comment page. And that is the docket 24 BPS 01. To receive public meeting notices and copies of all documents submitted to the docket, please subscribe to the Building Performance Standards topic under the CEC Efficiency Subscription category. Finally, if you have process questions for our team or would like to engage in discussions, please email us at bps@energy.ca.gov. As I mentioned earlier, this is the beginning of the process. We'll have several upcoming key engagements, including working groups and workshops, and our request for information is still open. So if you go to our website and check out our RFI from last July, and if you'd like to submit comments to the docket, you can use that as a guideline. I'll drop our website in the chat, and I'll be here to answer any questions you may have in the main room. Thanks a bunch. Now I have to unshare my screen.
1 second. Thanks, Alicia. And now we will. Okay, there we go. 1 second. All right, on to our third segment, which is demystifying benchmarking. Jake from the Energy Coalition will be taking us through this portion.
Thank you, Christine. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jake Anderson. I'm a program manager at the Energy Coalition, and as Christine said, we are supporting the city with the development of the building performance standard. So today I'll be doing a quick slide presentation to give kind of the benchmarking overview, and then I'll actually be doing a live demo of the tool that is used to benchmark buildings in hopes to demystify the process for everyone. So with that, we can go to our first slide here. Just to start off, let's take a quick moment to think about something that we all receive regularly, typically on a monthly basis, but many probably are rarely reviewing, which is our energy bills. So an energy bill is more than just a payment notice. It shows us how much energy we're using, when we're using it, and what it's costing us. So as the saying goes, you can't manage what you don't measure, and that's where benchmarking comes in. And studies have shown by comparing your current use to past use, or comparing your use to similar homes or buildings, people can save about 3% on energy costs every year. And that's just, by raising awareness and making those small changes to their consumption. We can go to the next slide. So in many ways, buildings are very similar to people. So they get older, they are very diverse, and they need care. So therefore, their parts break down. Every building has unique needs, and throughout their life cycle, they require upgrades. So where does benchmarking come in? It allows us to measure a building's energy use and compare it against past performance, and also compare it to similar buildings. So it's a tool that we use to help identify energy use and efficiencies. This can then lead to different cost-effective energy efficiency improvements, or building optimization of that specific equipment that's in your building, and in turn can help reduce your energy bills and the associated greenhouse gas emissions that go with that. Next slide. So when we talk about energy benchmarking, we are typically referring to using an industry standard tool called Energy Star Portfolio Manager, also referred to as ESPM. So you might hear that occasionally. So ESPM, or Energy Star Portfolio Manager, is a secure, free to use, and interactive online energy management tool. It's managed by the US Environmental Protection Agency. And this tool can help us with a host of benchmarking objectives, but with a main goal to help us track and assess our energy, water, and waste consumption within our buildings or across our building portfolio. So when we're talking about using a tool to benchmark, and we can go to the next slide, we are concerned with kind of two main buckets of information. And this is really critical to collect this information in order to do benchmarking in the first place. So the first bucket is that facility characteristic information. Think of things like your building address, the year that it was built, the overall square footage, maybe the occupancy percentage, how much of that building is actually being used or utilized. And then the other main bucket is the utility consumption data. So think your monthly electricity and natural gas bills for that given building. So when we take that information, we are able to kind of merge that all together into an online platform and get a lot of great insights. The one main benchmarking metric that many folks will use, and it's a way for us to really easily compare buildings, is called energy use intensity. So energy use intensity, also known as EUI, is the acronym, is essentially a sum of all of your energy use for a building within a given year. So adding up all your natural gas usage, all your electricity, maybe you have some other fuel sources at your building, and then dividing that total usage by your building's total square footage, which really gives us that intensity value. And so since, we know not all buildings are the same, EUI really allows us to make an apples to apples comparison across buildings, so that we're able to understand whether our building is using more or less energy than maybe another building with that same use type. And I'll go to our next slide here. So this is, before we dive into our live demo, just a quick screenshot of what the ESPM tool looks like. This is a facility dashboard looking at one specific parking structure within a neighboring city to West Hollywood. And we really like to share this example to kind of, one, showcase just what the tool looks like, but also how benchmarking can help maybe identify some energy efficiency needs, and then also track how those energy efficiency projects have made an impact on a given site. So you can see a very large dip in the overall electricity use at a certain point in time. I believe that's around October, which is when a specific lighting project was installed and drastically reduced the overall energy use at that parking structure. A really, really awesome tool to manage and track that building performance. So with that, I'll take over the screen share for just a few minutes. We're going to do a very quick walkthrough of what it takes in order to benchmark your building. And for this example, we've kind of simplified a few things, but I will note we'll be covering most of the high points, and following today there will be availability of additional support and different opportunities for building owners and those that need to benchmark to get all of their questions answered. So with that, let me share my screen. So everyone should be seeing our landing page. So this is kind of the login for Energy Star Portfolio Manager. Like I mentioned, the tool is free to use, so you can essentially go in, create a new account, which would be right here, and create that account so that you're able to start working within the tool. So I'll sign in. So this is essentially our kind of dashboard landing page. It would include any buildings that are within your portfolio that you've created. Today, I'll actually be making a new property. And for this example, we'll be focusing on a multifamily building. This one is a little bit larger. It's actually an actual building that exists. We've used all the data, and we'll be using actual data for the most part. This building is a little bit larger than what we'd typically see to be covered in the West Hollywood ordinance, but it'll be great for the demonstration. So a couple key characteristics here. Property type, for our example, is a multifamily building, multifamily housing. We are considering this to be one single building. And in terms of the construction status, it is an existing building that was built in 2013. So we want to select that. And that then brings us to a page where we'll enter a bunch of different property characteristics. So we'll go through that pretty quickly here. So putting the name, our country, the street address. This is at a made-up street in West Hollywood. City, the county, the state, and our zip code. I mentioned year built was 2013. Whoops. And for this property, our gross floor area, so that's the total square footage of all of the kind of enclosed spaces, not including, main parking areas that are not enclosed. That total square footage is a little over 200,000 square feet. Our irrigated area, that's just including any spaces where water is being supplied to the property. We're going to include we're going to exclude that from this and just essentially put a 0. But one thing I wanted to note, if you do have questions as you're going through in understanding kind of what is being asked, there's a great tool just kind of hovering over each field there, and there's a great description provided for each of those kind of overarching metrics. In terms of occupancy, so this is going to be kind of the count of areas within the building that are occupied or operational. And then in this case, we're going to put 100. Oops. Okay. In terms of other items that we would track associated with multifamily property, there is some parking information that we want to include, so I'm going to check that box. And then this property does also have a heated swimming pool, so that's another box that I would check. Some other things that I would ask related to whether there are retail stores within the building, which is no, whether there's restaurants or cafeterias, and then any nursing assisted care units. The answer to all of those is no for this example. So we'll hit continue. So the next page is where we'll enter a number of different use details. The first section is related to the building itself. And then the next takes a look at the pool that I indicated that the building has. And then the last is the parking usage for the building. So we'll do a quick round of entering these details. This particular unit has 178 units. The next section asks for kind of a distribution of where those units are related to the different kind of stories of the building. For this example, all units are within the first 4 stories of the building. But if that were to change, we could just kind of distribute these as needed. So for the 5 to 9 and 10 or more stories, there are no units because the building is only up to 4 stories tall. In terms of number of bedrooms, this is 376. It does have a common entrance, and there's no specific resident population that would need to be identified, and it is not government subsidized housing. Each unit has laundry hookups, so that's going to be 178 as well, with 0 in the common areas. And then all of the building has the ability to be heated and cooled. So in this case, we'll put 100%. I will note if there is ever uncertainty or a question about, what the correct answers are, what the correct values are, there is an option to use a default. And then there is an option to use a temporary value just to flag that as something to come back to once you have all the information. In terms of the pool size, this is a recreational pool. It is outdoor and it's in use 12 months of the year. And then in terms of the parking lot size, we're going to look, the total lot size is a little over 42,000. It does not have any partially enclosed garage. It does have 20,000 square feet as partially enclosed with no supplemental heating. So that was a quick run through of all the basic fields that would need to be entered. The next piece, just really quickly to showcase, is kind of the main point, which is adding all of your energy usage information. So once you've added all your property details, we would add some meters. So the first is electric. In this case, our electricity is purchased from the grid. And then our natural gas, we have 1 meter. And then just going back, electric, we have 1 meter as well. And we'll start there. So this just created some meters. We'll update the usage for therms and kWh. And then we'll enter the date that it became active. In this case, we'll just, for simplicity, say early July, but it typically goes back to when the building was built. Great. So the next step here would really, I guess the last step really is to upload our energy consumption data. So there's a number of different ways to do that. There are ways to automate that process or do it manually for each meter. I know we're a little short on time today, but we have prepared a quick way to manually to bulk upload that information. So I'll just show you kind of how quickly we can do that once you've been able to obtain that information from utilities. So there's ways to do some more bulk upload options. We're going to add bills to those existing meters that we just created. And then essentially, there's kind of a preparation of a spreadsheet, bulk uploading, and being able to add that pretty easily there. And essentially, once you're ready, you would click upload, and your usage would populate. In terms of just showing what that looks like, this is another sample where there's kind of some information here. So this is once that consumption data has been uploaded, you'd be able to kind of look at both the electric and natural gas information and how those trends are kind of tracking over the course of the period of data that's been uploaded. So really great way to see those trends and maybe identify some opportunities for improvement. Great. I know that was very high level and pretty quick, but this was just hopefully a way to make everyone feel a little more comfortable with the process and show, that it isn't a whole lot of information that's needed to really get some really great insights into your building. So with that, I will hand back the screen share and pass it back to Christine.
Tammy, do you want to take us away?
Yeah, thank you all. So yes, my name is Tammy. I work with The Switches On. We like to call ourselves just a one-stop shop for home electrification for residents within California, both homeowners and renters, to look up amazing things having to do with going all electric. So some things that we have and that we provide are just general information about electric appliances, the benefits of having them in your home, even information about how to switch them out, information having to do with electrical panels, sort of getting a little bit in the weeds like that, just for folks to be really well educated for when the time comes to make the switch to electric, like heat pump water heaters, heat pump HVAC, induction stoves. All of that is on our website. And then some of the tools that we have that people have alluded to are our incentive finder right here. It's a really easy platform for folks to use, just to type in your zip code at the top. If you want to find a specific type of incentive, like a rebate or a tax credit, what type of appliance you're looking for. You can refine your search over here on the left, and you can choose between multifamily or single family. Right here, the first hit that comes up for a West Hollywood zip code is a multifamily housing HERA rebate. So I want to just highlight HERA really quick. It's a very big tranche of money through Tech Clean California for specifically right now, the only funds that exist through HERA are for multifamily properties. But you can see here some of the incentives are quite big, having to do with electrical load or even swapping out heat pump for a heat pump water heater, heat pump HVAC, things like that. There's a lot of resources there. And another thing that we highlight here is that for multifamily properties, the building owner must be the one to apply and obtain these funds, and you have to work with a Tech Clean California certified contractor. So that's why we also have a contractor finder on our website on the Switches On. I did not add a screenshot for that because it looks quite similar to this, where you type in your zip code, what you're looking to upgrade, and it will show you what type, all different local contractors within our network, and many of them are certified by Tech Clean California to be able to obtain these resources. I wanted to highlight on top of that tomorrow there will be new funds for single family unit or single family housing type heat pump, HVAC, and water heater funds through Tech Clean California. So they are not launching until tomorrow, but they did put an announcement on their website a few days ago to look out for this. So this is going to be rebates for, again, heat pump water heaters and heat pump HVAC units. And you can read some of the details here. But if you go to Tech Clean California, or the Switches On will be updated tomorrow to include this new incentive. It's just some good news I wanted to help share. We have been hearing that these funds are going to be used up quite quickly. So if you are in the market and you have a single family home and you're looking to replace your HVAC or water heater, definitely look into this. And that's what we sort of pride ourselves on at the Switches On, is that we stay quite up to date with these resources and incentives. So definitely check out our website. Next is that another way to inform yourself for when the time comes to switch over to electric appliances is that we have a great blog that sort of gets more into depth about things like your electrical panel, step-by-step blogs about how real life people have replaced their gas water heater with a heat pump water heater. Things like that are super helpful to hear from real life folks and how these things work out. So we also have a newsletter that people can subscribe to that, again, we keep very updated, and we just try to equip people with as much information as possible. Lastly, I get to highlight this too, as my job as a community engagement associate. I get to be out in the community with folks all over, not all over Southern California, but I'm in LA, OC, and Inland Empire, working with, again, real life people homeowners here, like in Orange County, who I got to document him switching out his gas water heater with a heat pump water heater. And we talked all about that. We have folks who will open up their homes and do a little cooking demo of their induction stove to talk about the benefits of getting rid of the natural gas stove and putting in a very efficient, very clean and healthy induction stove. And we have folks who are lovely and will table with us at community events like we did in Beverly Hills for Earth Day. So we love to be involved and answer questions to community members and just show people that there are great alternatives for both homeowners and renters having to do with home electrification. So again, all of this information will be on the website here, switcheson.org, and my contact information is down there if you have any follow-up questions. Lightning round, how was that? That was quite fast.
Thank you, Tammy. Mark, I know you had some pending questions in your breakout room with the residential owners and condo folks. Do you want to go ahead and start help answer those? If you can tee those up for us, Mark, you're on mute.
Well, we can open it back up. I mean, we just scratched the surface of some of the questions. some folks were, actively considering or undertaking some retrofits. But I see some folks are still here. I know we have Mark and we have Cheryl and we have others. Did you want to come back and ask some follow-up questions? And if not, that's okay too.
Yeah, Mark, go for it.
Yeah, I'm just going to throw a comment out. This is a lot of information. It's a ton of information, and I'm so grateful to get it. I think, I've been composting since before most of you were born, and I grew up with that mindset. I'm hugely a huge environmental activist and a tree hugger. It's just so much information to take in. I wrote down people's names, and I plan to, tomorrow I'm gonna go to the site. It was that to see about those incentives. I own LaFontaine, but I'm also redoing a little Wexler crinkle roof house up behind Chateau Marmont, and replacing all of the single pane sliders with dual pane and clerestory windows with dual pane, and really going above and beyond to make it an energy efficient home. But it's just I don't know how to take the next step, really. Like, who can answer questions about a heat pump water heater? I'm committed to doing it, but who can answer the questions? Brianna, would you be willing to?
Yeah.
Who's the best person to say, I need answers for single family and for multifamily. So who would be my point of contact?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll take a first shot at this. So that was one of the points, is that throw everything on the table, and then that's the critical call to action, is like, what is the next step? From what I saw in the panel here is that, Chico, it seems like you have the kind of quarterbacking resources at the Clean Power Alliance. Do you want to say anything about how that's happened and how you've connected all the dots across all? And then Brianna, you said that you've teamed up yours with Jack and Laura's program. So Chico, any high level thoughts on where to start?
Sure. Yeah. So thank you. This is a great question. So this is kind of exactly what Energy Team was designed to do. And I just put that link in the chat to our page. If you have general questions like, how do I get started? What rebates are available? We can answer those questions. If you want to know like what specific rebates are available from a specific person, we can answer those questions. If you want to know how to wire something because you're doing it yourself, we can answer those questions. And then we can do a virtual energy assessment of your particular property or properties, and walk you through different kind of like scenario analysis. Like, what does it look like if you have to do a panel upgrade versus not doing one? What can you get on your existing panel versus, a full electrification? Like, we can provide you that kind of scenario analysis, so that then you go and find those rebates, apply for those rebates, which we can help you do as well, and get the maximum money back for all of your projects.
Okay.
Yeah. And a bit of commentary, I'd say a 1-2 combo. So until you get a hold of Chico, which can be like today, right? And then the respective teams that go with that, is that the switches on website, you can really do the self discovery in terms of, here's my building type, here's my zip code, what do I get? And then you can look at all those and you can poke around the websites, and you have like a menu. And then when you get with the Clean Power Alliance team, they can reiterate all those options. And I just say at the highest level, we really want to reduce both the energy consumption, your bills, and then the carbon associated with those. And a lot of times the philosophy in the building science world, if you want to call it like building science, is, really take care of the envelope, make sure you get the bones, and then get the systems in place for the water heating and the space heating and cooling appropriately sized once you have the good shell of the building. But that's not the only way to do it, because every building is at a different phase of its life. So they can definitely walk you through that. And like you said, those scenarios are good. It's not about having one option. It's about seeing the array of things you can do and size them up and do what makes sense.
Jose.
Any other questions out there? I know there's a couple, but if not, there's some wrapping up.